This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Janice Pons. I am the host on our podcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspective, Spiritual Truths. Listen, we're going to stay on this path that we've been on. You know what we do. We talk about what's going on in this nation. We have our flag behind us. We have our presidential seal to remind us to pray for our president and the cabinet that's working with him. We're going to remember our fellow Americans, 265,900,000 of them that were living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet last year. We want to keep them in our prayers. We want everybody to do better. And so we have a new leader. We have new people on Capitol Hill. We have a new pathway that we're on. And we're going to look at something tonight as it relates to a discussion that's going on in our nation that has to do with massive schemes against us. Massive schemes. Oh, yeah. Massive schemes. Somebody said, there she go. She's a conspiracy theorist. No, we're going to look at some facts, okay? So all this ties directly into our clinical perspective, which is protection from abuse of power. Let's explore this together. Remember, my fellow Americans, my brothers and sisters, we're going somewhere. It's expecting us when we get there. Come and go with me. As many of our fellow Americans simply do not understand what really occurred to us under the regime of the previous administration, they are now having to process some things. They're having to process some realities of massive schemes that were perpetrated against us as citizens. Stick with me, I'm gonna frame some things here. 4 people have pled guilty in a massive bribery scheme at an agency Democrats fought to protect from DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. They fought hard. They didn't want DOGE looking at various organizations and the operations thereof, where 4 people have pled guilty in a massive bribery scheme that DOGE evaluated. Why would there be such a fierce battle to keep what DOGE discovers away from we, the people? This is why I never will forget when Maxine Waters said, we don't know what they have on us. Well, we found out. Now listen to this. DOGE's financial audit of United States Agency for International Development, USAID. We're going to say USAID. That's the acronym for United States Agency for International Development. That prompted Democrats' cries that thousands were going to die without its funding. The United States Agency for International Development, USAID, it's an agency, which was dismantled by DOGE, and it needed to be amid complaints from Democrats that cutting waste was going to harm impoverished countries that were impoverished. It's at the center of a massive bribery scandal, my fellow Americans. A federal contracting officer and 3 businessmen have pleaded guilty in a scheme involving bribes like cash, NBA tickets, and a country club wedding, and a scandal the Department of Justice, DOJ, said was part of a $550 million scam. Roderick Watson, age 57, worked at a USAID contract. He worked as an officer. He was a contracting officer, according to DOJ, Department of Justice. He pleaded guilty to bribery of a public official through USAID there were non-governmental organizations, NGOs. I'm telling you guys, that's how they were getting over on us like a fat rat. They were getting all this money coming out of our paycheck, guys. Oh yeah, our taxpayer dollars, and going to them doing these kind of things. Oh yeah, listen to me now. Let's frame this thing. Waste and abuse have been found out to be rampant. Our taxpayer dollars were wasted and abused. So much went in to DEI efforts and the LGBTQ agenda to even pay for sex change operations in Guatemala. Our taxpayer dollars were paying for that, according to the DOJ. Watson, a USAID contracting officer, sold his influence starting in 2013 with contractors Walter Barnes, owner of a company called Vistant, and Daryl Britt, owner of a company called Aprio. Now, listen to what they were doing with our money. Funneling payoffs through subcontractor Paul Young to hide their tracks during the scheme. Britt and Barnes paid bribes to Watson that were often concealed by passing them through Young, who was the president of another subcontractor to Aprio and Vistant. See, they set up these deals. They set up these NGOs. This is how they were doing it. They regularly funneled bribes to this Mr. Watson, including cash, laptops, thousands of dollars in tickets, in exclusive suites at NBA games, country club weddings, down payments on residential mortgages, cellular phones, jobs for relatives. Listen, this is what it looks like. This is the observer, my clinical mind goes, as evidenced by what? This is it. This was the evidence. This is what they were doing. Man, I'm telling you what, the bribes were also often concealed through electronic bank transfers, falsely listing Watson on payroll, incorporated shell companies, and false invoices. Guys, this kind of stuff was rampant. Watson is alleged to have received bribes valued at more than approximately $1 million as part of the scheme. Vistant was awarded in November of 2023 as part of a joint venture, a contract worth up to, listen to this, our money, $800 million, with one of the focuses of that contract being to address a variety of issues affecting the root causes of, you ready? Irregular migration from Central America to the United States. An issue that Joe Biden tasked to Kamala Harris during his presidency. Several days later, that contract was canceled after USAID published a notice that said that Vistant was excluded from government contracting due to evidence of conduct of a lack of business honesty or integrity. Guys, that we need to be taking a look at this. This is what they've uncovered. This is just but an example of the kind of massive schemes that were going on, abusing us. As millions of Americans were living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet. This is why the Democratic Party didn't want close looks at this stuff, guys. They're cronies, they're people. They were getting over on us like a fat rat. God gave me that term and I'm gonna stick with it. Getting over on us like a fat rat. The joint venture then successfully sued the government over being put on that exclusion list and was awarded the contract and given a $10,000 payment in August 2024, right before the election. Corruption in government programs cannot be tolerated. Watson abused his position of trust for personal gain while federal contractors engage in a pay-to-play scheme. According to Acting Assistant Inspector General for Investigation Sean Bottery of the USAID Office of Inspector General, he said in a press release, this is what he said. He said, this office is firmly committed to rooting out fraud and corruption within U.S. foreign assistance programs. The unfolding dynamics underscores our unwavering focus on exposing criminal activity. Guys, it was rampant, including bribery schemes by those entrusted to faithfully award government contracts. Officials state that they appreciate their long-standing partnership with the Department of Justice in holding accountable those who defraud us, the American taxpayer. USAID was one of the public faces and most drastic examples of DOJ's effort to cut waste, fraud, and abuse in government. This was rampant in the Obama, Biden, Harris cabal. Here is but one example. The efforts of what DOJ did resulted in the agency's programs being cut by 83%, while the programs deemed vital were moved to the State Department. Marco Rubio is doing an outstanding job. USAID's website went dark, and employees were barred from entering into headquarters the 1st of February, while others had their work put on hold. You remember when Maxine Waters and company, they were showing up at these places and they were demanding to get in. They were not let in. Boy, they were squirming. You see why? Do you see why? Others had their work put on hold. The Trump administration, he's not taking that mess. We got to get to the root of this stuff. The Trump administration announced that all USAID direct hire personnel will be put on administrative leave. The agency came under fire for many funding choices, including allocations of $1.5 million for a program that sought to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Siberia's workplaces and business communities, and a $70,000 program for a DEI musical in Ireland. We've already addressed what happened in the airline industry, guys, related to DEI. 1,000 air traffic controllers finished school, finished training. They were not hired, taken out of the pool overnight by the Obama, Biden, Harris cabal because they were white Americans. They wanted to hire someone that was LGBT, minority, or woman, and the ones that benefited the most were white women. Black folk were at the bottom of the list. White women and gay and LGBTQ, they benefited the most. That stuff's been put to a stop. What happened in the airline industry related to DEI, guys? During DOJ's sweep, it was revealed that U.S. dollars were ending up in the hands of terrorist-linked groups, such as funds reportedly providing full funding for Al-Qaeda terrorists. They just were. Anwar, what they would call Anwar Alaki. That's it. I have to really focus on how to pronounce these things correctly. Yeah. What were they helping them do? To attend college in Colorado? It's been a mess. Doge was dismantling USAID. As they were doing that, many Democrats and media outlets blasted the cuts, claiming that it was going to harm impoverished recipients of aid across the globe, and some, including U.S. frontman Bono, who said the cuts would lead to over 300,000 deaths. They're liars from the pit of hell. Several House and Senate Democrats protested outside of USAID's headquarters. In February, they started acting out, expressing outrage over the layoffs and cuts. Anybody who cares about good and effective government should be concerned about waste and fraud and abuse in government agencies, including USAID. So where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? I've said it repeatedly. I'm going to say it and I'm going to keep saying it. They were getting over on us like a fat rat. Yes, they were. They were. Through their positions of power, we were being abused. And these were massive schemes. I've simply dissected one of them. So this was abuse, guys. They were taking our money. So what are we going to look at tonight from our clinical perspective? It all ties in to these massive schemes of what they were doing to us, guys. What we have experienced and witnessed is abuse of power. Power abuse in the workplace without knowing the name for it is rampant. The abuse usually stems from someone who holds some position of power, like a boss, an executive, a manager, or a church, a ministry leader, applying pressure and bullying their way into and through difficult or stressful situations. Power abuse. I'm telling you, these people were drunk on power. They were drunk on power. Power abuse in the workplace and in churches, in organizations, refers to the exploitation, and this is what they were doing at a government level, and it just trickled down and affected us. It refers to the exploitation of authority or positional power to exert undue influence, control, or manipulation over others, often at the expense of psychological safety and trust. You can't trust everybody. Is it okay to ask questions? Abusive people gain and maintain power over their victim with controlling or coercive behavior and proceed to subject people to psychological, even physical, even sexual or financial abuse. Power abuse can go on for years. And I'm telling you, I have seen it over and over again. It's often ignored. I don't ignore it. I've seen it and it was like, I got to get out of here. I know exactly what's going on here. I refuse to participate in dysfunction. And we aren't perfect, but I'm not going to participate in abuse. And then if it's brought to your attention and then you ignore it and deny it, okay. People have to decide what they're going to do with it. It's often ignored and may be encouraged by those surrounding the abuser. It's enabled. Not taking action to stop the abuse is a form of abuse itself. This is rampant, guys. Leaders who lack emotional intelligence or self-awareness may misuse power to compensate. This is what they end up doing, guys. Compensating for perceived vulnerabilities or to maintain control. It's about power and control. Although seemingly a personal psychological issue, the consequences affect those around the person. Unchecked individual power can impede or damage organizational culture by eroding empathy. Empathy. Why does power abuse even persist in the first place? Wow, guys, this stuff is real, and it was going on at a governmental level. It goes on in jobs. It goes on in ministries, at churches. Why does it persist? Power abuse persists due to a combination of poor organizational culture. It goes on because of structural hierarchies and societal norms. Traditional power structures often prioritize authority and results over collaboration and well-being, creating environments where abusive behaviors are often normalized or ignored. How can you stop abusive power in the workplace? Stopping power abuse and bullying in the workplace means implementing education. We go there. We talk about it. You educate people. Education and enacting support systems at an organizational level. Organizations are required to have training in these dynamics. Simply having an anti-bullying policy or code of conduct in place doesn't always help. Where such policies do exist, they are often ignored and ineffective. Now, let's consider the following ways to prevent the abuse of power in business, places, ministries, places. Leadership training. It's recommended that we teach company leaders and managers how to foster equity and transparency. As a leader, one of the most transparent things that I ever do, and you can ask people that I supervise, I say, guys, hold on, wait a minute, whoa. I think I missed it right there. Let's go back and dissect that together. They love me. I'm transparent. If I miss it, I say I missed it. Wait a minute, I think I missed it. Hold on. And I want to be held accountable. That's a strong leader. We foster equity and transparency, such as active listening. Where you go, wait a minute, did I hear you say? And I repeat what I heard them say. Empathy and cultural competence. With these skills, inclusive leaders are better equipped to recognize and address power dynamics that may harm others. Reporting and intervention levels. Listen, establish a reporting system that allows employees to discuss these workplace conflicts, ministry conflicts. It's just something, we're not going to talk about that. Why not? Where there's a system to address grievances or abuses with executive staff or human resources managers. A company can thwart power abuse by implementing mechanisms for anonymous feedback and ensure timely responses to reports of abuse. The severity of the abuse should dictate what kind of measures need to be taken. When initial intervention attempts fail to protect the employee or ministry participant or employee from continued abuse, enforce escalating punishments up to and including termination. There has to be accountability in accordance with a company's or organization's disciplinary action policy. It has to be implemented. What is the role of support systems? Support systems, creating opportunities and spaces where employees can safely share their experiences and discuss company and ministry culture. It can take the form of affinity groups, surveys, more things where you get feedback, guys. What about organizational structure? Shifting from a where it's a hierarchy. Yeah, you're going to have somebody that's in charge, but where I'm at, we do teams. It's us. Shifting away from that kind of decision making to inclusive practices that value diverse perspectives and invite team members to co-create solutions, ensuring power is distributed equitably to help us reach optimal goals. When you create a shared space of trust and respect, you can fundamentally disrupt cycles of power abuse. Listen, do you get the feel of what has gone on in our nation and how this just trickles down into ministries, into workplaces? Guys, we need to go there. There's nothing that we cannot overcome in this nation. Oh no, we can overcome this stuff. What have we looked at? Massive schemes against us. And our clinical perspective is, how do we actually go in and deal with the abuse of power? It's an abuse. Why was there such a fierce battle to keep what Doge discovered away from we the people? Doge's financial audit, it needed to be done. Listen, we're going to keep exploring these issues. We're going somewhere. It's expecting us when we get there. We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we continue to go from destruction, all those things, those are destructive patterns. Getting over on us like a fat rat, taking our money from us, abusing us, as they were just living, as they say, as my daddy would say, they were living hound the hog. Living hound the hog. Living hound the hog, yeah. As people were suffering. These issues, that's destruction. But we want to go to dignity. And as we laid out these clinical perspectives, those are considerations of how we get to dignity. We go from destruction to dignity, clinical perspectives, strategies, skills, and tools to help us as a way of thinking. Spiritual truths. God wants us to be loving, to be respectful, to be orderly, to not be divisive and beating each other up and harming each other. We walk in love. The highest calling is love, guys, and it's accountability. Listen, we're going somewhere. It's expecting us when we get there. I want to give a shout out again to Singapore, Finland, Australia, Africa, Egypt, the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America, who is downloading the podcast on the Apple Podcast venues, those type of mediums out there. We have a social media, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble. This is expanding, and you all have asked. I'm getting subscriptions on my social media platforms I didn't even ask for. Thank you. And others have said, do you have exclusive content? Yes, it's forthcoming. So be on the outlook on janicepons.com, on my website, and on my social media platforms. I'm going to be putting it will be under the name of Janice Pons. I'm going to be using the Patreon platform to have exclusive content. And you will be supported by subscribing. You're going to be supporting my efforts because I'm going to expand it even more. And by getting a subscription, you're going to help me to be able to accomplish goals. And there are people, I mean, I get comments, people praying for my influence and my outreach to expand. Guys, I can't thank you enough. I mean, I'm almost brought to tears when I read some of these comments. I appreciate you all so much. Listen, you know my heart. I love our posterity. I love America. I love you guys. If you're looking at this, you've been prayed over. Oh, yes. We are going somewhere. It's expecting us when we get there. As we continue to go from destruction to dignity, clinical perspectives, spiritual truths. Keep coming back. We're going to go all the way in because we're one nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all. As we pray for one another, love one another as we go, yes, us, together from destruction to dignity, clinical perspective, spiritual truths. I will see you next week. Thank you for coming in. Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.
We are one power, strength is ours, liberty, been set free, education, affirmation, dedication, information, revelation.